Welcome to the DplusCast, where we discuss everything Disney Plus and beyond in streaming entertainment. My name's Garrett.
And I'm Will.
And today, we're joined by arts and entertainment journalist Mike Roe as we patty cake our way through the most animated film noir in more ways than one in film history. Today, we're talking 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I wish I could pump that score into my veins.
So good.
So good.
So good.
So good. And I was one of the biggest revelations of watching this on Disney Plus in particular was the extras.
Oh,
I haven't even ventured into the extras that are made available on Disney Plus, and a lot of them are like trailers or clips, but this one actually had a 40-minute doc.
Oh, really?
Of like a behind the scenes on Roger Rabbit, which I think exists on my Blu-ray as well, but it was nice to have it just at my fingertips.
I like that Disney Plus is doing that more. Like, I feel like they are adding a lot more extras, and I feel like that's one thing that's always bummed me out about Netflix and some of the other providers is, like, I would love to see more extras out there.
Right. And
I was a DVD nerd. I like an extra.
Exactly,
so, yeah.
right? And one of the biggest things that I found interesting about that, the doc, was when when Zemeckis was talking about the score and the fact that, of course, there's the Alan Silvestri score.
Wait, he does that?
Yes.
Also
does Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I was also noticing that...
and Back to the Future.
He
works with Zemeckis quite a bit.
I was thinking like, oh, this is in the Back to the Future world. I was thinking the score has bits of Back to the Future moments in it as well.
That's cool.
But there are parts of the movie that aren't actually scored by Alan Silvestri. They're just improvisational jazz, where they would get jazz musicians watching the film, and they would just improvisationally play jazz to what they felt the scene was like, the vibe it was giving.
I like that.
Particularly was the scene where Eddie Valiant comes out of the bathroom to see Jessica Rabbit in his office and things like that. But I mean, we're going to get to all this. Mike, how you doing? Welcome
I'm doing
back.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Garrett.
Oh, what have you been watching lately?
I have been watching on Shrill on Hulu. Been catching up on that. I've been watching
Law & Order SVU on Hulu.
Nice. It's nice to see the the classic Law & Order I hear is going to be on the new Peacock channel as well. Yeah. So streaming finally Law & Order, because I heard it was really hard because it's like they sell rights based on number of episodes, and like no one wanted to pay for 1 million episodes of Law & Order.
That's right.
So
typically I like the original Law & Order, and you'd have to find it on TNT or Sundance, and there was one other channel, but it was like impossible to find.
SVU's great, though.
It is great, but it jumps the shark at a very particular moment where I'm just like, wiping my hands of it. I'm done. I got to move on. I'm out.
I did think it was funny. I heard someone the other day talking about how there's a point in the Law & Order shows, because they last so long, where instead of like hot TV cops, they start looking like real grizzled cops if you get too deep enough in.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, if you stay around long enough, you start looking like you've aged about 2 decades. Yeah. So, you've been watching what on Hulu?
Shrill. It's Edie Bryant from SNL show about being it's based on a real feminist author's book, and I think she's really good in it. I wasn't sure what to think about it going in, and it's been really funny, and I think that they did a good job with it. So it's like a half hour too. So it's like I think it's fun, and it's set in Portland, so it's got a little of that Portlandia vibe. But yeah, it's a good time.
I think Edie Bryant is the most talented person currently on SNL, and that's...
I like seeing her doing something different too, because she's like, I love being the sexy girl on SNL, which is like every character she does. Well, this was her being a little more like, just like fun, giggly, fun girl, and she's really good, but also a very strong and powerful character as well.
Yeah, I can always tell the sketches on SNL that she clearly had her pencil on, because they're always great.
Yeah.
And she's always great in them. And, I have a big problem with a lot of SNL people these days. And one of them is Colin Jost. And
it's just the Scarlett Johansson thing that's bothering you?
It is.
Yeah.
And it's particularly, and I got nothing against Colin Jost. Okay, like personally, if he wants to be with Scarlett Johansson, that's wonderful. I'm glad they found happiness.
Yeah.
Awesome. My problem is Saturday Night Live as an institution. And I always felt Saturday Night Live was at its best when it was counterculture. Right? When
you have like that, you have that celebrity couple. You have Pete Davidson with everybody.
Yeah.
You have
Saturday Night Live was supposed to be like a check. Like Congress is supposed to be in the White House, but like they're the check on Hollywood.
Yeah,
like
they're not the cool kids club. Now they are the
the cool kids. Yeah. And so when Scarlett Johansson is one to get herself in some trouble on Twitter. I don't see Colin Jost making. Do you think he's going to be writing jokes about his wife?
I mean,
no.
it's also,
you have it's a conflict of interest.
I mean, you also have the other head writer of SNL, Michael Che, who gets himself in trouble on social media quite a bit as well. It's
Did you see all that stuff recently with like him and Jack Allison feuding?
Yeah.
It's not worth getting too deep into.
No,
but basically, an unemployed writer, like he keeps like. Michael Che keeps picking fights with him. The unemployed writer keeps being like, "What are you doing?
Clearly, they're not busy enough at Saturday Night Live.
That's his only.
Too many off weeks, maybe.
What have you been watching? What's good?
I've been watching a lot of Roger Rabbit. I think I watched this movie 3 times in the past 2 weeks.
Good.
It's so good.
I mean, it really hit me. I was very little when this came out, and I had like a Roger Rabbit stuffed doll that talked. I remember you pull a string, he says little catchphrases. Eventually broke, so it wouldn't speak at the right speed anymore, but I loved the thing.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it was very terrifying.
I've loved this movie since I was little, and I would go so far as to call this movie a masterpiece. And it's a masterpiece because in anybody else's hands than Robert Zemeckis, Steven Spielberg, this could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's so meticulously crafted and wonderfully executed. From the premise to the writing to the execution, it's all there.
It made me think too, like how mind blowing this was when it came out, because you couldn't just CG in characters into everything.
Right.
It's just like they have to hand animate all of these characters into these situations. Think how hard that is for the actors. And like everyone complained, like when George Lucas did it with the Star Wars movies, they have to act against green screens. It's so hard. This is great acting against green screens and with no characters that aren't there.
And going back to the documentary that's on Disney Plus that you can watch, and I really highly recommend it because some of these special features they're not great, right? This one's good because it has a lot of footage of the filming, and so they would film Bob Hoskins acting with a puppet, right? A puppet of Roger Rabbit, so that he would get his eye line correct. Because a lot of times if you're looking off in the distance and you're trying to make it seem like you're looking at something 2 feet in front of you, the eyes just do not match up. So they would do a take where he's acting with the puppet, and then they'd take the puppet away so that he could sort of recreate that scene. A big aspect of this movie that Zemeckis really wanted to portray was the toons being able to interact with the real world. So they have like behind the scenes footage of real like engineers engineering like things moving.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I watched it, because I was like, how are they doing this? Because there were bits where I'm like, if it was a movie today, you would just CG that.
Yeah,
but like at the time, I was like, how is this like physical object moving when this animated character is touching? I'm like, did they have to like cut out a person there? But I guess it was actually engineering.
So specifically when Roger Rabbit's breaking the plates on his head, they built a machine. So it was literally a robot that would take a plate and crack, and then they would put, I guess, the cell of Roger Rabbit over the actual machine, and then the machine's like hidden. Of course, now it's just like, oh, you put a couple tennis balls on it, and remove it in post to make it seem like it's so simple, and it isn't. But it's just we see it so often now that it just feels old hat. Specifically, the Ink and Paint Club, the octopus bartender. I guess that was one where they didn't want to have to put something over a machine. So it was almost like haunted house type practical effects. They had like strings moving things, and then they animate it afterwards. It's I really recommend it. It's a really, really good 35 minute watch.
Perfect.
And it's clearly made in like 1990 something. So it's got a lot of good old outfits. And Spielberg when he's still got brown hair and wearing hats and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that Roger Rabbit is such a special movie because like it has that like nostalgia vibe, but it's like I think the comedy in it all works too. Like the comedy and the drama both work, which is I think a hard balance to hit sometimes. It was funny that we had that period of early 90s movies where everyone was like, we can combine animation and real people.
Yeah.
You had like
Cool
this sort of,
World.
Yeah, Cool World, and then
Brad
eventually
Pitt.
Space Jam, I think was sort of the apex of that, and then
and that's and as a kid, of course, I saw Space Jam and I loved it. But revisiting it, you're seeing Michael Jordan. He's not a brilliant actor.
No, yeah, I rewatched that earlier this year too, and it's you can see like, oh, this like there are some bits with the tunes that are good, and then Bill Murray's funny.
Yeah, Bill Murray's great,
because he's good in everything. But yeah, like Michael Jordan, like no, he cannot carry this.
I mean, Bob Hoskins. It's such a shame that he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Because I just want to sing his if I just want to run into him on the street and just say like, you do not get enough credit for this performance. The way you interact with all of these tunes, but he's such a definitive character.
And plus, like being like an English actor, great American accent, really has like an LA tough guy vibe.
You know what I love about it too in this doc, and this is it's so different from like the Daniel Day-Lewis's of the world. Like Daniel Day-Lewis would be Eddie Valiant on set, offset, like during cuts, whatever. They're showing like Bob Hoskins working with the puppet or whatever, and he's in his English accent. He's like, "So you want me to blah, blah, blah," and it's like action. He's like, "What do you mean you're a rabbit?" And he goes right into character. And I respect Daniel Day-Lewis for his brilliance, but I also respect somebody who can turn it on and turn it off like that.
It's called acting.
I know, right?
Like, I remember I interviewed this one actor one time, and he was talking about how I was sort of asking because he was on 2 different TV shows at the same time, playing very different characters. I was asking how he switched back and forth between them, and he was just like, "I do it very easily." Like I was like, "That's the perfect response. You're an actor. Good."
There's this old story of Dustin Hoffman on the set of I think it was Marathon Man with Laurence Olivier, and they're doing this scene where Dustin Hoffman's supposed to be out of breath. Right, so before they're about to say action, Dustin Hoffman does like 4 or 5 sprints to get himself out of breath and get his body going, and Laurence Olivier just looks at him and goes, "Try acting; it's easier." Right,
that's the perfect old school Hollywood dude response.
Versus the method of the 70s, exactly. The De Niros, the Pacinos.
Yeah.
So this
fun fact: while we're on Bob Hoskins, did you
go.
know he was not the first considered for this role?
Who was first?
I can't imagine he was.
Yeah, like he's not movie star Bob
right?
Hoskins.
I imagine he got it because somebody turned it down.
The one of which was Harrison Ford.
That sounds about right.
Too expensive. Chevy Chase.
No,
it would have been
I'm
a
so
bad
glad,
call.
no.
He wasn't interested.
That's
apparently.
putting a hat on a hat.
I just pictured him like improvising throughout this movie and it being a wholly different movie with him.
And then Bill Murray, who allegedly didn't find out that they wanted him, and is bummed that he didn't get to be in it. According to this article I'm reading.
That's very interesting.
You know, he did Groundhog Day a few years later, which I find to be the definitive comedic performance of probably a generation.
Bill Murray could have been a delight in this, though. But yeah, I like Bob Hoskins a lot. I think
what's so good about Bob Hoskins, he's not only the straight man, he's a fleshed out character. He is built out of the Fred McMurrays, the William Holdens of old school film noir. He's acting in this movie as if it's a drama.
That's what I was going to say. That's probably one of the things about this movie that worked the most for me is that you don't think, oh, I think Bill Murray would have been like, oh, he's interacting with the cartoon right now.
Yeah.
It's like this guy is interacting with the world, and they just happen to be tunes.
Yeah, I like that he is also not like big megastar Bob Hoskins. Like he's a known actor, but he's not like megastar actor. So I think you could get lost in the character a lot more than if it was Bill Murray or Chevy Chase or someone like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this was the second highest grossing movie of 1988.
Wow.
Made $154 million in the United States. The number 1 highest grossing film of 1988, and this is back when winning an Academy Award for Best Picture meant you were the highest grossing, right? And it was Rain Man. Imagine a movie like Rain Man being number 1 these days. Ooh, I don't think so.
Like Parasite is number 1.
Yeah,
probably not.
It's just not going to happen.
Like good for Parasite. But yeah,
Parasite's great. It's not going to beat Endgame.
Yeah.
At the box office. We can't talk about Who Framed Roger Rabbit without talking about film noir. Right? Yeah. So, Will, this is the first time, as usual, this is the first time you have seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit. What did you think?
I told you when I first got here, but for everyone that's listening, it didn't work for me. And I do think that I'm probably wrong. But
you are wrong.
Right. But
incorrect.
I can tell you why I think it didn't work for me. And it's because I can't connect with things that aren't people, even with like AI, TV shows, robots, whatever. I'm like, I don't care if that AI has a consciousness or not. It's a robot. It doesn't. And so for the tunes, for them to be like the pivotal thing, I was like, this doesn't do anything for me. It wasn't until the final act when it became more about Bob Hoskins that I was like, okay, now I'm starting to feel this. I think if I went back and rewatched it, which I will do, I think I'll like it a lot more.
And it's also interesting that, like, I feel like the setup of the movie makes you feel like, oh, Roger Rabbit's sort of our lead, but it's really Bob Hoskins really does carry it, and Roger Rabbit's sort of dressing, and then it really hits in the final act because you have him and Jessica are being held captive, like tied up. They can do nothing, and then Bob Hoskins is really the hero that gets to have the hero's journey of this movie.
That's very true.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, it's not like this, but I'm going to say it. But it's almost like you're watching Silence of the Lambs. And, you know, it's Hannibal Lecter's movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's Roger Rabbit's in the title, but, like, the story's about Clarice Starling.
It's very much that dynamic, I think. He's like helping Bob Hoskins to understand tunes. He has Roger Rabbit sort of serving that role that Hannibal Lecter serves for Clarice.
Right. So how much do you know about film noir?
Not a ton. I mean, I'm familiar with the tropes, but but reading.
You've heard it. You sort of understand it. Yeah. So one thing looking at, I've seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit is probably my top 25 favorite films of all time. Like, yes, it's probably in my top 25. I love it. I love the music. I love the performances. I love the whole world it creates. And a big part of that is the film noir world. I love film noir. And this movie just completely lifts, not just tone or tropes, it lifts storylines from... And Will, you've never seen Chinatown, right?
Correct. Yeah, no.
Mike, you revealed...
I have not seen Chinatown
You have not
either.
seen Chinatown.
I know the layout of the movie. I know the essential storyline of it, but I have not seen it.
Chinatown currently, I believe, streaming on Prime, so go home and watch it.
All right.
I know this day and age it's a problematic movie to really, like, sing its praises about because of Roman Polanski, but I like to think that there were a lot of other people that worked on that film who were not Roman Polanski.
You don't want to bury their achievements.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's how I sleep at night. Yeah. But this so I'm going to read you the sort of plot description of Chinatown, okay? A private detective hired to expose an adulterer finds himself caught up in a web of deceit, corruption, and murder.
Yeah, it's...
I mean, the first act is Jack Nicholson. He's taking photos of an adulterer as a private eye. It leads to a murder, and it exposes a corrupt real estate scheme in 1937 Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's like real estate scheme and a new real estate scheme.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's and if you look at the visually, when you watch the first act of Chinatown, there are shot-for-shot recreations of Chinatown in Roger Rabbit with the Roger Rabbit's looking out of the blinds, looking at the photos of Jessica Rabbit with Marvin Acme. I just love a good murder mystery.
Yeah, it's fun also watching it as an adult too, because I think I see it more through Eddie Valiant's character instead of from the Roger Rabbit perspective. Like as a kid, I was like, "Oh, Roger Rabbit's cool, Toontown's cool." As an adult, I'm like, "Oh, cool, classic Los Angeles, classic film noir stuff. The red car, it's great."
I love the red car.
Yeah.
You couldn't have this movie today.
No, you could not, because it's like has characters from Disney and Warner Brothers in it. Like there's no way that they would agree with that until Disney buys Warner Brothers.
Right.
Like you're not going to have.
I was thinking the same thing. Like until
Bugs
Disney,
Bunny
Disney takes over Warner Brothers, you're never going to have Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny in the same frame. Yeah. And you know, it's like this famous story that contractually, Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny had to have the exact same amount of words spoken in the movie. So if you count the words spoken by Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse, it's absolutely exact.
I
remember as
hilarious.
a kid, like when I was a kid too, I went to like the theme park and they had merch from the other company there at whatever, I think it was at Great America. I think they had some Disney stuff there for Roger Rabbit. And it was crazy because it's like, this is a crossover that should not be happening.
But there are things I want to talk more about the film noir world. The score is so good. It just sets the tone. It just that
it's got like a warmth to it too. It's it's not
it's romantic.
It's not standard movie score. It's like a little bit of that like classic Casablanca-y type feel, and then also like has that jazz thing to it as well that I think gives it sort of this different vibe. Like you're not just getting like standard emotional music or standard suspense music for most of it. I think near the end when there's sort of the chase scenes, it's like this is like very Back to the Future-y. You can hear that Sylvester.
I mean, they're using the same like filming locations too.
Exactly.
Back to the Future. So they're talking about Chinatown and film noir. There's also this is actually the first time I noticed this connection was this watch.
Will,
I assume I'm just always going to assume you've never seen this movie.
No.
Mike, have you ever seen Sunset Boulevard?
No, I have not.
Okay, so Sunset Boulevard, a classic, maybe one of, I think it's the 16th greatest film on AFI's top 100 movies.
I've seen a lot of clips from it. It's beautifully shot.
It's great. I rewatched it this past week. I rewatched a few film noirs after watching Roger Rabbit, sort of like get my blood flowing. So Eddie Valiant goes to the Ink and Paint Club, which is a wonderful scene, but he meets up with Betty Boop, who comes out of nowhere.
Work's been kind of slow since cartoons went to color. But I still got it, Eddie. Boop, boop-be-doo.
So Betty Boop's like, she was a star. She's no longer a star. So Sunset Boulevard, it's about an up-and-coming, a desperate screenwriter in Los Angeles. And he ends up basically not riding the coattails, but getting seduced by Norma Desmond, an aging silent film actress who has been sort of run out of the business due to talkies, sound movies, color. And her...
Oh, that's interesting.
Her, like, most famous line, other than Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up, is...
Get out.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you lost your friend. And I don't think red is the right color. Wait a minute, haven't I seen you before? I know your face.
Get out, or shall I call my servant?
You're Norma Desmond. Used to be in silent pictures, used to be big.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
There's that... I couldn't help think
and
that...
Betty Boop does that.
And Betty Boop walks in black and white, just like, Sunset Boulevard, and feeling that, like, of course, she's not saying it like Norma Desmond does. She's much more, much friendlier. It's hard to talk about film noir today in a way that doesn't sound misogynistic, because a lot of times it's
detectives and broads and dames.
And it's a moral man. It's usually like a seemingly moral yet dark spirited guy who is being sucked into immortality, and it's usually by seduction of like a hypersexualized femme fatale. It's usually a woman that like makes the guy do something that he normally wouldn't do.
An Adam and Eve story.
Yeah, it's Adam and Eve. Double Indemnity. It's Fred McMurray's an insurance salesman, and this woman like convinces him like, hey, if we kill my husband, we could be rich.
And there's also the old film code too that required like immoral people to be punished, and so you definitely have that happening, and you have to have like the moral upstanding character to be the hero. And
it's funny that it's called film noir because it's really an American type of filmmaking, and it was subsequently named film noir. It wasn't like in the middle 40s.
Let's go see a film noir movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think they used to call them like melodramas. And it was, retrospectively or retroactively, whichever word applies there.
I think retroactively.
Are they interchangeable? No, retrospectively.
In retrospect
Yeah.
is like viewing backwards.
Yeah.
Retroactively probably means like pushing, or like deciding on something later.
All right, so I think it probably applies to. They both apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good,
vocabulary.
Garrett. You're good.
What
Cool.
you come to the DplusCast for.
Love it.
Vocabcast.
So film noir was sort of like a term derived by critics after that era. This is just such a great callback to that type of filmmaking, and to be able to achieve it in color, and not just in color, but the most colorful with the tunes and the
It's a beautiful
animation.
movie.
It's really
I think that
shot.
they really have good evocative shots throughout when they use the colors to sort of tell the story through the pictures. Film's a visual medium, so you have scenes where it's sort of washed out in different colors, and I think it's really well done. So
Yeah. One small thing. I love that Eddie Valiant in his gun holster has his wild turkey bottle. He doesn't carry a gun. Carries his wild turkey bottle.
yeah. You can see him battle his alcoholism through this movie. Like, there are moments where it gets like it just skirts the line of being too adult for like getting another rating up in the movie.
Yeah. So infamously, this movie was supposed to be a Disney release, and it was Michael Eisner who thought it was a little too risque. A little too
I think
risque.
that's fair.
We're going to release it under Touchstone. touchstone. Like nobody. Well, I guess we know now, but back then people didn't know.
People didn't think about it. You didn't have the
People
internet.
weren't paying. People weren't paying attention on Twitter to any of that
Didn't know
garbage.
about like what the different branding meant.
Yeah,
So.
no one was going to Deadline.com in the middle of their lunch break, trying to figure out who owned what and what owned who. Like it's this movie's like a perfect 100 minutes of comedy, of drama, of emotion. Eddie Valiant is such a great character in that he's tortured. Like you said, film is a visual medium. Just showing him looking through his photos of his brother, you get the entire relationship within seconds.
It's funny because I was just listening to a screenwriting podcast this week where they were talking about how bad of a screenwriting move it is to have people evoke emotion by looking at photos. But they were saying, though, that it works in like a war movie because it's like the soldiers do carry photos and it makes sense. And I think it works here for that reason, too, because it's like it made sense because he is a PI who's taking photos.
Right.
And that's how you get to the idea of him seeing these photos of his brother.
Yeah, it makes sense because he
They
gets the
work
film
it in.
developed.
Yeah.
And those photos are in the same film
Yes.
as the photos he took of Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah, I was gonna say also we haven't even talked about Christopher Lloyd too. Like he's amazing in this.
He is, and like, I don't want to say he's forgettable. He's just so good at being him
Yeah.
and being that character.
Yeah, being Judge Doom and
Being Judge Doom. He's not Doc from Back to the
Yeah.
Future. He just belongs in this universe.
Yeah.
For me, I think the MVP of this movie is Bob Hoskins.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
The
for sure.
entire thing does not work. From the opening, the cartoon that opens with Baby Herman and Roger Rabbit and the director coming on set, and the camera just pans to the right and Eddie
You pull
Valiant
out
takes
this
a
cartoon
swig.
world and- yeah.
You go into the real world and Eddie Valiant just takes a swig and says, "Toons." Like within seconds, you understand him, his motivations, his relationships with these toon characters. I love the idea of this different universe that feels like our own.
Yeah.
That we could live in and touch.
And you get it. You get the rules.
get the rules,
like,
yes.
They do a good job like hitting the rules throughout the movie too. Like here's how toons and humans can interact. And then like they do the whole thing about like, oh, you'll die laughing, and they set that up, and then they eventually pay it off. And like you're like oh, I see that this has been set up throughout. And you get introduced to these different like concepts. Like the what's the ooze called?
Dip.
The dip. Yeah. And
Apparently, the chemicals that they
Yes, it's-
cite in there is like paint thinner,
Yeah.
which makes sense
makes
for
sense.
tunes.
Perfect.
It's acetone,
Benzonates
acetone,
or-
turpentine, and
yeah.
benzene or whatever.
Something,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
paint thinner, which is great.
Yeah. I thought that
It wasn't until an adult that I realized when Judge Doom takes his hand out of the dip that it's not blood, it's
Yeah.
red paint.
Yep. Yeah, but they give you the
Such an
feeling of
idiot.
that. Yeah, I think
So
that
dumb.
they do a really good job making you feel for these characters too. Like when you see that shoe get dipped and you just murder this cartoon character,
Right?
you're like, oh god,
Full on murdering.
Yeah.
Like who's allowed? Like
Yeah.
do these tunes not have rights?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this like Star Wars where it's like droids? Do droids have rights?
Yeah.
Do droids have feelings?
Yeah, I think they and
That's why I
like
didn't care about it.
I really felt about that. I mean, and I love Westworld, so I feel for
Sure.
robots.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, and I thought also like you really feel like the relationship between Jessica and Roger. I think they hit it really well. Like it's funny that they're together, but then they also hit like, oh, they really deeply care about each other, and you like get heartbroken in moments for that.
They do, and I love how when Valiant asks Jessica Rabbit like, "What do you see in him, anyways?" And when she says like, "He makes me laugh," it's one made for a joke, but also you get it.
Yeah,
You get
of
it,
course.
right?
Yeah.
It's just like, no, I believe that that's why she loves him, but it's also a joke for this movie.
Yeah.
I would love to go back and actually add up the screen time of Roger Rabbit in this movie. Because I feel like less is more, and I feel he's featured just the right
Yes.
amount.
Any more than that, it would have driven, especially the adults, insane. Like,
Yes.
it was like I think for kids, it's like it's a fun character you can latch onto him, but like he's just enough too for it. You get like a taste of him. You get his wackiness. You see him do some fun bits, and then he's out, and like he like keeps coming back, and like throughout the movie, you're like, oh right, Roger, he's here, and we've been following Eddie Valiant and what he's doing.
Right. And this is probably a good time to sort of talk about our RIP segment in that, because there's been a sequel written for this movie that has been out there for like 20 plus years. This movie should not be remade.
No.
This movie
I guess it would be with CG characters or something. It's like, no, thank you.
It's just that it's not. It's just the magic is gone because we have seen behind the curtain. We know how the box is cut in half and put back together. We know how the magicians do the magic now, and it's not very magical.
Like, I guess kind of the modern version of this is like Ted or something.
Yeah.
Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, exactly. Detective Pikachu is sort of in the.
I didn't even make that connection, but yeah,
I didn't
Detective
think
Pikachu is probably born out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Exactly.
Sonic.
Yeah.
Sonic.
Yeah.
Just because that just came
I guess
out.
we're in a new era of
it was
CG characters being.
This was so revolutionary.
Yes, exactly.
It does feel like, and granted, I haven't seen, I don't think any of the movies we just listed. However, I do think that like a big part of Who Framed Roger Rabbit is the ability for the real world to interact with the toon world, right? Whereas I feel like in those other ones, it's like here's a cartoon that's running around stopping and different things.
It's like I feel like they hit that perfect tone of. I mean, that's what Touchstone movies did for Disney. It was sort of this adventure movies that both kids and adults could love, and I think that's what is really special about this movie because like all these other movies we talked about, like Ted's only for adults, Sonic and Detective Pikachu are mostly just for kids, especially Sonic. So I think that this movie really split that generation difference really well.
My specific favorite toon real world interaction moment is when Valiant's got Roger Rabbit under the water doing his laundry.
Yeah.
And one of the weasels says, "We're going to leave you and your rabbit out to dry." And he just sort of, he hits the water with his hand and the water splashes up.
Yeah.
And you watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit and I'm thinking, how did they do that? How did they do that? Whereas if that happened in a movie today, it's like okay, well,
CG.
CG,
Cool.
whatever.
Everything, the answer to everything is CG.
But they had to film that scene in, the late 80s in a way that the water splashes and then animate him in later. So because the water's real. And to me, I don't know. It's that tiny little thing, and I'm like, that's
it's a little bit of magic. It's like watching a magic trick. You know that there's like a way they did it, but you don't know exactly how, and it's amazing.
Do you think that's?
I mean, I was thinking about how you could do this today. I was reading some interviews about the proposed sequel that never happened, and they were talking about how, they were sort of talking like, should it be CG? Should it not? Like, I think it has to be traditional animation if you were going to bring it back. But they were talking also about how Disney apparently has no love for Roger and even less for Jessica Rabbit, which I understand.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't like putting that in a Disney movie today. That's a rough character because he's like so sexualized, and I think that's a tough like as Disney as a corporation doesn't want to do that. It's like tough for feminist reasons. There's a lot of reasons why Jessica Rabbit's a hard character to put into a modern movie.
I think if you did, she has to be the main character, and it has to be all about that line of hers. I'm not bad. I'm just drawn this way. And then
you have to be like a
That's a good spin.
reinterpretation and like going against the patriarchy and like really sort of reinterpreting that character.
I do think I have an idea for how you redo this in a still innovative way, and it's not a movie. It's what we were talking about before. The Void. Do it as a ride. Do it as a VR thing where you are in Toonland.
You get to hang out with Roger Rabbit.
Right. You get to still maybe solve some type of mystery, but you get to like feel the interaction of the weirdness of Toontown.
That's a very fun
idea.
idea.
They have the Roger Rabbit ride at Disneyland.
Oh, do they?
It's very
It's
forgettable.
fine. Yeah,
it's like a dark ride where you're in the cab and you're able to like spin. It's basically the teacups mixed with like Mr. Toads.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's nothing special.
I believe that. I think with
And-
the VR aspect, though.
And I think
like,
a big
yeah,
part of it was the contentious relationship between Eisner and Spielberg. They did not get along. They did not love each other. So I think the whole idea of like building off of Roger Rabbit sort of just died over
that
time.
makes sense.
And the proposed sequel apparently it was going to be a prequel and follow how Roger and Jessica met, basically.
Okay.
And like it was.
I just don't give a shit.
The thing I was reading, it was like also like the script, like it was going to be them, and they have like Jessica Rabbit gets used in World War II propaganda for the Nazis. Was what I was reading about this, and Roger has to go save her, of course. But like apparently Spielberg, after doing Schindler's List, thought I can't make fun of this. No,
Yeah, apparently like Spielberg just doesn't want to use Nazis in more of his like his more fun movies, because he just has a different view in the whole,
understandably,
the whole thing, totally
for sure.
understandably. And if you watch. If you care to watch the fourth Indiana Jones movie, they're not Nazis; they're Soviets, right?
Oh yeah.
It boils down to something so basic that nobody at Disney if they are going to make a sequel or reboot this movie, understands what made this movie work. And it's Eddie Valiant. And it's the film noir aspect of the movie. And it's putting those tunes into that world with this character. Roger Rabbit is not the star of this movie. So saying, oh, let's do a sequel with Roger Rabbit, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no. I don't want Roger Rabbit to be... Roger Rabbit was the sidecar.
Yep.
Right? He's the one getting framed. Like, we're rooting for him, but can you imagine Roger Rabbit driving the story or driving the emotional, the emotional appeal of the entire thing?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like you said, this is like a love letter to classic film. And I think that that's not really what Disney's interested in right now. Like, they are reinterpreting everything to, like, make new, like, take what's old and make it new for the current generation. Yeah. They are not trying to say, like, oh, what's old is cool. So they want to say, like, let's make the old things new. Let's make the new Lion King. I
could totally see, and we definitely live in an age now where the making of a movie ties into its appeal, its lore, its marketing. A few years ago, it was The Revenant. Like, The Revenant as a movie is like a movie, right? But it was all about, Leo ate a cow liver and lived inside a horse for 6 months. It's like, I got to see what this was. And most recently with 1917, most of its marketing was making of videos of Roger Deakins running through a trench with a Steadicam, you know? And...
Well, it's funny because that can be it can give so much weight to a movie and make people so excited about it, but can also destroy one if you look at, like, Solo, right?
Yeah.
Like, with all the production issues they were having and getting stalled and rewrites and all this stuff, by the time it came around, everyone was like, I know this is going to be a disaster. I don't want to see it.
So the only way I could see, like, remaking Who Framed Roger Rabbit or doing a sequel would be if they really leaned into that. And they said, listen, we're going to use, like, little to no CG. Or they say, we're going to use as much computer-generated imagery as we used in the original 1988 version.
One thing I was really curious about, too, is one of the proposed ideas for the movie was having CG Eddie Valiant in it, which I was like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing because we need Eddie Valiant or it's a terrible thing. And, like,
I think it's terrible.
I mean, if you did a sequel where you had to have a new actor sort of taking on that role, maybe like Eddie Valiant's, like, relative or something, like, who would that actor be? Like, who do we have now that could play that part?
Yeah, I think the only way that I could even stomach them doing something with this movie, I think this movie should just remain. It's timeless. It works. Like I said, it's just a masterpiece. The
technology is what made it work, so it doesn't matter today.
It's able to perfectly balance a neo-noir with a buddy comedy and a whodunit. And, like, to be able to achieve all of those things, like, how can you... That's a huge risk to try to do it again. The only thing I could even think that you could try is we don't know how tunes age, right? So Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit could easily look the exact same 25 years later or 30 years later. Maybe you do Los Angeles in the 80s, and you do different stages of Hollywood's history. Maybe the 70s, all of a sudden, like, Roger Rabbit's on the set of The Godfather. I don't know.
That's funny.
Like, you could do something like that. But I just don't see I don't see the reward in the risk.
And they really give you a very complete story, too. It ends with a super happy ending. They get Toontown. Toons own it. Like, if you did a new movie, you'd sort of have to, like, take away from that a bit and be like, oh, how did it go wrong? What happened with Toontown? Like,
right?
Yeah.
Where are the freeways?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it was the making fun of the freeway system was a very funny bit of that movie.
Love it.
Just like a running bit. They're talking about, like, who's going to ever want to ride on the freeway when we have the red car?
I love right at the very beginning when Valiant's like, was like, who needs a car in LA? We got the best public transportation system in the world.
Yeah, it's very funny and, like, a really nice historic take on things too. I thought that was a lot of fun, and eventually, you see the plan and, like, how they're going to have freeways replace everything and have their gas stations everywhere, and like the dark dystopian future of the villain in this movie is our present. So.
Right, yeah. It's consumerism and post World War II, ingenuity and progress, I guess. Maybe I should be embarrassed about this, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not alone. The whole shave and a haircut bit, I had no idea that knock was called shave and a haircut. Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah.
the fiance and I, when we take our like nightly showers, and we're in two different bathrooms, but of course sharing the same water line, we knock with the two bits, the shave and a haircut knock to let when we're turning the water on, so the other knows
Prepared
to
and,
for hot,
Steel
cold,
yourself.
that whole
that's
thing.
funny,
Like prepare yourself for some cold water to come on top of you. And so one of us will do the shave and a haircut, the other one does the two bits. I had no idea that that's what it's called. So for decades, I've been watching this
You've been
movie.
doing the cartoon bit,
Decades. I had no idea when Christopher Lloyd is saying like no one can resist the shave and a haircut.
Well, he said no tune, right?
No tune.
tune.
Yeah,
And the
no
reason I
tune.
say that is because the very first time they did it, I just instinctively, and then he gives his line. I was like, oh, all
okay.
right.
Yeah.
It works on me too. Apparently, I'm a tune. Yeah, I thought it was very fun. Like, it was fun to see like how you play with tune logic in this. Like, what do tunes? How do they like? Yeah, like it was interesting to see like what happens when a tune drinks alcohol. We saw what happens when a tune hears shaving the haircuts.
They're really good with the rules.
Yeah,
And I feel
tune
like
cars. It was fun to see. Like, and then I love when the car gets into the real car near the end. Was a really delightful bit.
the visual of is his name Cabby or
I think
what
so.
is it?
Yeah.
When he as a car walks over and gets into a car and turns on his headlights to drive. It's just these little things that someone in a room is like, what if we, and they're able to execute. And I feel like that's when a popular movie can become a classic when you have those little things that adds on to the whole experience.
Little bits of genius throughout.
Yes.
I love that it is also like the whole murder plot is just complicated enough to be interesting, but not too complicated that it's over confusing or anything.
Yeah, there's the whole like disappearing, reappearing ink thing is a
silly,
little
but-
like, how did? What am I going to do?
Sure,
I mean,
it's
come on.
fine. Yeah, move on.
I mean, what am I going to look at Back to the Future 2 and start start Einstein theorying relativity in time? No, I gotta get on with my life.
I also thought it was interesting. I found out that the same guy who did the voice for Roger Rabbit did the voice for a couple of the Weasels as well, and it's sort of fun to see. Like, oh, that makes sense. Like,
Oh
they are-
God!
yeah.
So back to the doc.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing an entire episode on this documentary
Yeah.
more than the movie. So he actually, what's it? Charlie Fleischer?
Yeah.
Charlie Fleischer. He dressed up as Roger on set. So he was on set running, like performing with Bob Hoskins, and he would dress up as he had a life-size Roger Rabbit costume. So they would go to lunch to the commissary. And he would go in full costume.
That's awesome.
And other people on the lot were like, "Oh my God, this Roger Rabbit movie's going to be a disaster. Did you see the costume this guy is wearing?
that's great.
Like this is going to be terrible."
I mean, he is like a comedian who's kind of a nut. Like, he's a bit of a weird dude.
He seems
and-
like a little
yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis
Yeah.
in that, like he seemed very method when you listen
Yep.
to his interviews and watch his interviews. In this little tidbit, he's very serious about his work.
Yeah, I heard him on like a panel, like one of those comedy panel shows recently, and he was, it's like, oh yeah, he's still very much like he's Roger Rabbit, like he's living off of that fumes to this day. So
I can't believe this movie's like 32 years old.
yeah, it was interesting. Like, it was past 30th anniversary, no big promotion from Disney or anything, so we're probably not seeing too much more in the future of this movie, but it really has a really special place in history.
We're lucky that it exists on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I found a couple of articles that, and this is how this town works. This is how this business works. It's just sometimes the littlest, the most randomest of things end up shaping history and what we see and who's in what. The reason that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is even available on Disney Plus is because Steven Spielberg was very happy that Disney is releasing his West Side Story remake at Christmas for an Oscar run. That they gave him the prime Christmas Day release date. That they're like, nope, we're going to do an Oscar run for your West Side Story. He's like, all right, you can have Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Because apparently, like it has
has
been
the
a
rights
very
and,
it's a shared rights situation because it's Disney and Amblin. It's been very contentious. He like apparently they released some shorts afterwards.
Yeah,
One was
I've seen
attached to
these,
like
yeah.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The other was attached to Dick Tracy, and it was a way to keep Roger Rabbit alive. But
Yeah.
again, they missed the whole fact that it's not Roger Rabbit that makes this
Right.
movie.
Yeah.
I love Zemeckis.
Yeah.
I love Zemeckis. What has happened to Robert Zemeckis?
It's really sad, like when you see a director has like that perfect streak. I've listened to this podcast called Hit Parade that's about pop music, and they talk on that about when an artist has their imperial period, which is where they like everything they do goes to number one. Like they're always topping the charts. I feel like this is really Robert Zemeckis' imperial period, where he had like Back to the Future. He was hitting on every single thing, and then we saw what happened later.
And he even had. He's probably at rising to the height of his powers at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But then 6 years later, he wins an Oscar for Forrest Gump for Best Director. And he's hitting home runs every pitch. Like, you can look back, Forrest Gump, not the best picture of 1994, which is one of the strongest years of film ever, with Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption, Quiz Show. I love Quiz Show.
That's great.
Even his later stuff in the late 90s, early aughts with What Lies Beneath, underrated movie.
Yeah, that's
that
a great
he
movie.
filmed
Yeah.
in between two shoots of Castaway, so Tom Hanks could lose weight.
Really?
Yeah. So
didn't know. That's cool.
they filmed parts of Castaway with fat Tom Hanks, for lack of a better term, and
Fat Hanks.
yeah, right. And while Tom Hanks was losing weight, he made another movie for Universal, What Lies Beneath, in between.
Right.
Two very good movies.
Yeah.
And then
Polar Express.
Give it to me, Will.
2004,
Give it to me.
2007, Beowulf, 2009, A Christmas Carol. And I think
dear.
at that point, those three movies,
Like
and that's
CG,
all you do
got
in a
busy
decade.
doing CG stuff, I guess.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
No, you
where
know
he fell
what?
into.
You know what it is. There's two sides to every coin. Zemeckis is one side, and James Cameron is another.
I was gonna say James Cameron. It was like starting to think about his career, and
James Cameron, fascinated with a certain kind of technology, and figured out a way to make it work, and how to make money off of it, and to really make it into like a cultural phenomenon. Like, listen, Avatar is basically unwatchable at this point, but seeing it in a theater,
in theater
was
in 3D.
amazing.
Yeah, I remember taking my mom to that, blowing her mind, and
remarkable. But it's not a great movie, right?
Well,
Meanwhile,
they're gonna make 4 more.
Yeah,
So,
right. Meanwhile, Zemeckis, the technology's not great, and the movies aren't great.
Yeah, it's like he was like fascinated by technology before. He didn't like wait. Like James Cameron kept waiting on technology. Like, there were long periods where he does nothing because he's like, oh, the tech's not there yet. That's why we have to wait for like decades for freaking Avatar 2.
And that's what it is. Maybe it's the patience.
Yeah.
Having the
Yes.
patience and also the power. I mean, after Titanic,
Yeah.
James Cameron could basically do whatever he wanted, right? But Zemeckis was he's no schlub walking around Hollywood. I mean, the guy had clout, and now I feel like he doesn't have any clout. And even his return to form, Flight,
Yeah.
where he came back and he showed the world, like, hey guys, I know how to make movies.
I'm okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I know how to make movies. I just chose not to make these movies for over a decade.
Yeah.
You know? And to be able to get a Denzel on that, and to get a performance like that from Denzel, but then he follows it up with Welcome to Marwan.
I
which
mean,
did
Cloud,
not.
again, it's also one that focused on technology. The
Yeah.
same thing with like those miniatures and like figuring that out. I think that when you rely on the technology, it's a big bet. Like you have to keep your fingers crossed. You'll end up either with Welcome to Marwan or Lord of the Rings. Who knows? So
Yeah. That's a big gap.
yeah, exactly.
Yoka, could you say something?
No, I was just gonna say, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? If the technology didn't stand up, if they didn't nail that could have been a flop.
Yeah, it had to hit a very specific period. It had to have the right technology. That had to be ready. Had to be film noir and have like that be. I think that it was the right age away from that in history. I think now it's like film noir. Doing a film noir movie now, I think feels even a little weirder.
I was wondering, has there been one that's come out recently that we can point to, or is that something that could be like, I mean, not re-IP'd, but like, could you do a film noir today's day and
Before
age?
you answer, I think there is an example.
I was trying.
I think
to
it probably
too,
is,
yeah.
I mean, Ryan Johnson had Brick.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's,
but that was
a
that's
while
15
back,
years
too.
ago
Yeah.
now.
I mean, Knives Out is reinterpreting a classic movie genre in a modern way.
Yeah.
So you could do something like that.
You know, I think there have been attempts. I don't think it's really been thrown out there as like, hey, I made a neo-noir movie. Come see it. Right? I mean, we had Ryan Johnson with Brick, but at this point, that's 15 years ago.
I mean, Blade Runner 2049 is kind of that, like a future noir.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing
But the original
classic,
was already a
yes,
noir.
exactly. But doing a classic noir, I mean, that's a way of how to update the material, like Blade Runner 2049. I wonder, like, what the Who Framed Roger Rabbit of that is. Do you jump forward in time? Does it have to be that period, or it's not going to feel right? Like you were mentioning, like 70s film. I think that's an interesting idea, but it might not be a popular enough cultural thing. Like, it's for film nerds. Well, yeah, 70s movies are amazing, but
well, that's what I thought was interesting too. It's like like I said, the movie didn't work for me the first watch through, but I think a lot of that is because I don't appreciate film in this level, at least not yet. So like all the things that you guys have been saying, like it's a love letter to X, Y, and Z. I'm like, oh, that actually sounds really cool. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, the audience at the time, like the kids seeing this movie, they didn't know that either.
True.
So
True.
I think your experience is valid. Like it's
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's also sort of the brilliance of Pixar films, that they're able to appeal to that child audience while also telling a story that like makes every adult cry. When we're talking about like modern noir, the only thing I can really compare it to, and maybe we just don't call it noir anymore, we call them anti-heroes.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, like, is Breaking Bad a neo-noir?
I mean, Logan is basically like
Logan.
and you know, like we're sort of like in noir and sort of pulling elements from westerns, and I think those are sort of both still playing in our culture. Like you see the same tropes showing up over and over again, even if they aren't exactly matching up with the original material.
Yeah, and I think Ryan Johnson with Brick, and this year with Knives Out. I love a director that's very into genre and can sort of he didn't reinvent it, but he can present it in a new and exciting and fun way that can get people into it. And when Mike, you were talking about the technology being there, right place, right time. That's what Who Framed Roger Rabbit feels like. Right place, right time. The beginning of this documentary, Spielberg says, like, this is going to be a long production. Like, this is like, I think they took like 3 years. It's the patience that does not exist anymore.
Yeah, it's one of those. I love a movie that hits at the right time. Like Jurassic Park is one of those movies where the CG finally got just good enough to pull it off. It had to be
Still
like,
looks better than half of the CG available today.
exactly. They had to put it in the dark, in the rain to make it work. But like they were like, all right, if we make this dark and rainy, we can do this.
That's right.
So,
but yeah, I don't think there's probably 2 or 3 filmmakers on this planet that could tell a studio, hey, I need 3 years to make this movie. Give me this money.
yeah.
And I mean, who are they? I mean, maybe I don't even know if Spielberg. Well, Spielberg.
I don't know
Spielberg funds his own movies.
I don't know that anybody who doesn't fund their own movies can really has that much clout. Like I've heard a bunch of interviews with the director of the Mission Impossible movies, Christopher
McQuarrie.
Yeah, McQuarrie. He keeps saying like, I have movies I want to make, I cannot make them. Like even though he's directed like these giant mega box office hits, because like
I'm going to push back though. Yeah. He's making Tom Cruise movies.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know if anybody's going to Mission Impossible
For
to
him.
see Christopher McQuarrie. They're going to see Tom Cruise jump out of a plane. Yeah. So I like a name that might come to mind would be like a Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is making $1 billion every time he makes a movie. Until he doesn't, could he be that guy?
But if he asked to do like a 3-year project, they would say yes, but first give us a 1-year project that we can like we'll negotiate with you. You need to do this for us, and you can get your passion
I
project.
feel like that's how it used to work.
Yeah.
The one for you, one for me.
Yeah, the one for you, one
Wasn't
for
that
me.
how Inception came about? Like that was
I
his
don't know
passion
that.
one. He basically got to do that for doing Dark Knight Rises.
I'm sure once The Dark Knight made $1 billion, I think Christopher Nolan could do whatever he wanted.
That's fair.
And I'm sure Warner Brothers said, hey, we need you to make a 3rd movie. If you make this, we will fund that. But I'm sure that deal was like, hey, well, let's give him $100 million for his passion project, right? Instead of, they end up giving him like $250 million. And now he's just like a cash cow, and they need to keep that person happy because every 3 or 4 years, that filmmaker is going to make that studio $1 billion until he doesn't.
Yeah,
And then you're Robert Zemeckis making Welcome to Marwa.
Who's who's the like making big movies that are not like a little artsy like Christopher Nolan though? Like there's someone who, that's the thing about Robert Zemeckis, was he was making big like 4-quadrant movies that were really hitting.
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, maybe J.J. Abrams.
J.J.
Like,
But J.J. attaches himself to franchises.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think J.J. has the confidence in himself to really launch something.
He likes producing.
Yeah, he's like a fixer.
Yeah.
Like he can sort of see a situation, find himself
find
his way out of it.
He was one of the folks they looked at for writing the sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
when
I
he
saw
was a
that.
young screenwriter, I was like, wow, hadn't forgotten that J.J. Abrams like wrote like Regarding Henry and like is a long-time Hollywood dude.
I think potentially, and I've been talking about this since the Academy Awards happened, the future of Bong Joon-Ho in American cinema is going to be fascinating. Fascinating, because if he won Best International Feature, and he won Best Screenplay, wonderful, right? Great. His career is going to be changed forever. Winning Best Director and winning Best Picture, that's going to change the entire framework of this industry.
Change the game.
Change what people are going to pay money to see. So, like you said, like Christopher Nolan has that clout. I think Bong Joon-Ho is probably the prettiest girl at the prom right now. You've got studios probably offering him the world.
And I'd be curious
for
to
his
see
next
like
thing.
when if you took something at like this a little more bigger scale, like Snowpiercer, combine that with what he's doing with Parasite. Are those movies going to get bigger and bigger? Maybe think, what would have happened if Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out now? Like, could it have been an even crazier? Like, it was a hit at the time, but not like. Could it be like the number one? Would it be the end game now if you could do something like that again?
Because we see these big studios and they court talent. They just court them and they try to keep them happy. I think that Bong Joon-Ho's next home will be Universal. And that's not a huge
they're distributing Parasites.
Universal distributed Parasite domestically in the United States. So what does Universal have that Bong Joon-Ho could put his stamp on that Universal's desperate for? And it's their Universal's monsters.
They'll finally figure out this Dark Universe thing.
Can you imagine Bong Joon-Ho's version of
That'd be great.
Frankenstein, The Invisible Man,
That's really smart.
The Mummy, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? If he could create this, he could produce them. He could direct like one or two, but he could have a farm system of Korean directing talent coming in and directing American films that are visually amazing.
And he's also showing that he's okay with doing a franchise because he's doing the Parasite TV show.
Yeah, I wonder if that's still going to happen.
And he just did an interview about it where he talked about how his idea, like he knows, like, because like the there's a maid in the movie who shows up at the house and her face is all messed up, and he's like, there's a story behind that.
Yeah.
And he was sort of saying like there are pieces of the movie where there are stories that he has and wants to tell. So
I'm just curious that if it didn't win Best Picture, I'd say slam dunk. Of course, they're going to do the series.
Yeah.
Now that it won Best Picture and it's being re-released in a bunch of theaters and more people are seeing it,
do it as a sequel or
will people need a series in English language series on it? Because most people are going to see it the way it was made. So the reason why I'm talking about these filmmakers with this power and this clout is because it feels like Robert Zemeckis is no longer right. Like he's no longer at the table with Steven Spielberg at the Golden Globes. He's not sitting there with the highest of high in Hollywood, and now he's attached to make the live action Pinocchio for Disney. And
I mean, now like the people pulling the strings are like your Kevin Feige's, who don't even direct.
Yeah.
They're like the producers. Like you have these like mastermind people, or you have Jon Favreau helping to run the like what they're doing with live action remakes and stuff. And like it's sort of like we've got this new level even above a super director. It's like the super producer.
Yeah. And now I feel like Robert Zemeckis is sort of like director for hire, which is fine. Like, listen, I'm not crying over Robert Zemeckis' career. He's had a fine life, and he's got a lovely office on the Disney lot for like 2 decades. Or is Image Mover still on the Disney lot? Who knows? But he's got a relationship with Disney back doing Pinocchio. It's just so far away from Back to the Future. It's rare that you have these. It's maybe you'll understand this reference. It's like Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
It's like Bo Jackson. Like it's almost mythical in his success, but it was in such a short amount of time, right? And Zemeckis is sort of that small window of just like hammering home, just movie after movie after movie, and it's like, oh my God, this guy's just gonna keep making them, and then it just fizzled.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see, like that time, like they were like it's such a huge original IP thing. You're focusing this movie. You have Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny playing second fiddle in this movie,
right?
And like that would not happen.
Making
you
cameos,
exactly. Like no, that's not how you make use your A+ star properties, but you use it to launch Roger Rabbit and make a weird neo-noir movie. And it's amazing that happened. Another reason that couldn't happen today because of how important the IP always comes first now.
IP is paramount.
yeah, exactly. Which is such a bummer, but yeah, it's. I mean, IP has always been important, but it's like this, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit launched things. Like when I was a kid, I played the Who Framed Roger Rabbit Nintendo game.
I didn't play this
amazing.
game.
Yeah,
and you wrote something down about it. Describe this game for me. This was for Super Nintendo or regular Nintendo?
Regular Nintendo. You went around, you researched, you had to like solve the case, find clues, and then you had to drive around in the cab. I remember you get to drive around, like you drove, like it was a lot of driving. There was so much driving in this game. And then eventually I remember you get to the end, they do have the final scene from the movie. You have to like, the dip gun is coming toward Roger, and you have to like fight Judge Doom and defeat him before the dip gets to Roger. And it's like, simple, but it was, I remember they had like the little 8-bit version of the movie score, which was a delight. So it was,
I bet that makes
fun.
for a killer ringtone.
Exactly. So like I think that it's fun to see, like at the time you could like crank out a game like that pretty fast because games were simple. Now like you don't have nearly as many tie-in games with movies because it takes years to develop a good video game, and like they can't line that up with movie production. So like there's finally an Avengers video game coming out now. It's like they can't use the rights for the movies, so like it doesn't look like them, and I miss that age of fun IP tie-ins.
Yeah, I mean apparently like as if calm down Disney. But apparently Disney's annoyed that that's one area that they can't seem to be making money on, and it's video games. It's like guys, relax.
Yeah, like they tried launching the thing with like the toys, where you had the game that you had to buy the toys and it would connect with your game, and then it went out of business. It was like Disney Infinity or something like that, and because they couldn't manage to make it work.
Yeah. They can't. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
sorry.
No, Disney, you can't rule every single industry, every single piece of entertainment.
Sorry, you're not invited to this party, Bob Iger.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what else can be said about Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I love this movie, and I'm sorry it didn't work for you, Will.
I'm excited.
Maybe
to watch
after this
it,
conversation,
I think
it works a little
this
better.
will help.
Did we talk you into
And
it?
I want to go see Chinatown now.
Watch Chinatown.
Cool. I will.
If anybody, if there are some movies you want to watch on the back of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I would recommend Chinatown, or Chinatown, however you want to emphasize it. Sunset Boulevard, Double Indemnity, Billy Wilder, just
Double
king.
Indemnity is amazing.
It's so
love
good.
that movie.
Yeah, watch those movies and then watch Roger Rabbit, and you'll just see how like Roger Rabbit has led to a world of Detective Pikachus and Sonic the Hedgehogs.
Yeah.
Oh, also don't watch the Roger Rabbit shorts because that will make Steven Spielberg mad.
Oh yeah. He will grab Who Framed Roger Rabbit off of Disney Plus. Like it's on there just out of the goodness of his heart.
I would
apparently,
love the stats to be that like kids are watching those shorts more than they're watching Roger Rabbit.
I don't know if anybody knows that these
Yeah,
extras and
exactly.
shorts exist.
Yeah.
By chance, I was so surprised that this 40-minute documentary was just available. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And it was so 90s, like not remastered.
Ugly suits.
It's so wonderfully bad.
Excellent.
But some good behind-the-scenes footage, which you rarely get, and some good, honest commentary, which we don't get much honesty from Disney anymore. Not a lot of transparency, as you would say. Well, I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Top 25 in my list. It has to be. Mike, what do you got to plug?
You can find me on social media at Mike Roe. I also write for LAist. LAist, that's LAIST.com. I cover arts and entertainment. I do a lot of coverage of Disney. I just did the new Star Wars ride a couple months ago. I'm going to be looking at the new Avengers campus coming up. So be sure to check that out and follow all my other things online.
I can't wait. I got my family coming out here this summer. My older brother has His kids are sort of at the Disney age. They haven't done their Disney parks trip as a family yet. And my nephew's obsessed with Spider-Man, like obsessed. So I'm really hoping that their trip coincides with that Avengers campus being open. If not, then he'll learn a lesson in disappointment. That will build him for the rest of his life. Yes, build in character. Will, what do you got to plug?
Just this podcast, my dude.
I love it. Such a trooper. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at DplusCast, DplusCast. That's DplusCast, all spelled out. Please rate, review, subscribe. Give us a listen. Slide into my DMs. You got some feedback? I want to hear it. I want to hear it until I don't want to hear it anymore. So
then he really won't want to hear it.
Yeah, I really won't want to hear it. So take advantage of this time right now when I want to hear your feedback, because it might not last very long, right? So if you're listening, thank you for listening. Get in touch with us. We'll talk to you soon.